Good evening, everybody. Just welcome you all to this formal meeting of the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, held in part via Microsoft Teams. Please note that this meeting of the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee is being live streamed and will be recorded by the Council to support the production of the minutes and for the use of democratic services. In order to ensure this meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone please follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chair. Mute your microphones when you're not talking. If accessing via Teams only, always turn on your video function when invited to speak and state your name. Please use your microphones when speaking, and please mute or turn off your microphones when you're not talking. If you would like to speak on an item, please do by using the raise your hand feature of the Teams. Just for members of the committee who have not been before, I do still like to do that because it helps me. Although I know some of you haven't got Teams on, so I'll keep an eye on you as well. For those in the room, please note that if a fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by the way of the nearest available side fire exit route and make your way to the ground floor of the multi-storey car park. Finally, please ensure that background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to the silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. Apologies. I know we've had apologies from Councillors Geary, Lawton and Northover. Substitute members, Councillor Hilliard is substituting for Councillor Geary and Councillor Davies is substituting for Councillor Lawton. Welcome, Councillor Davies. Malcolm, it's your first time with us, isn't it? So you are very welcome. Any other apologies at all?
No, Chair.
So item 3, declaration of interest. Do any councillors have any disclosable pecuniary interests or any local interests on any items on the agenda? No, it seems not. So the next item, item 4, is the minutes. Have we all had a chance to look at the minutes? Are we all happy with them? Any issues at all? Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move on. Public issues. Oh, sorry, yes, the action sheet. Sorry, I forgot that. Are there any items on the action sheet that anybody would like to raise at all? No? Okay, great. So in that case, public issues. I don't believe there's been any. So nice and quickly on to item 6, which is the main purpose of this meeting. It's a Children's Services Improvement Plan. Now, as most of you are aware, we decided to add this extra Children's ONS meeting onto the calendar in order to look at the Children's Service Improvement Plan, which is required for the recent Ofsted report. At our previous meeting, the plan had only just been published, so it wasn't available to us. So we decided we would like to look at it particularly in this meeting. I know the plan is a working document and there's been changes since the papers were published. So our task today is to gain an insight into the work in progress and decide how we want to go forward with our scrutiny in a timely and useful way. We have Cathy Hadley, Director of Children's Services, with us, and Rachel Garrett, the Head of Quality Assurance, Governance and Improvement, who I believe is going to present the reports. So you're very welcome.
Thank you, Chair. If I can, way of introduction, obviously last time we were overview and scrutiny, we went through the Ofsted report. I'd just like to report since then we've had the statutory direction from the Secretary of State giving formal outline of the requirements of the Council and to support and manage children's services. Through that statutory direction, we've also had the change of a new DFE advisor who was named within that, and his name is John Coughlin. We have set up a new structure and terms of reference for the improvement board that we have on a monthly basis, and we have held one of those boards since that set up, and John Coughlin has been the DFE advisor. We have our annual conversation with Ofsted next week and have set out a self-assessment for that. And we have a monitoring visit from Ofsted at our front door in June. This will be we know the month, but we don't know when they're going to turn up, so there is an element of surprise. The front door monitoring visit will be a letter. It will not be a report, and it will not be publishable. If we remember last time, Overview and Scrutiny reviewed the Ofsted outcome, and we went through in some detail what has been happening in those areas. And today we're obviously reviewing the plan for Overview and Scrutiny to decide the areas that you would like to look at on the forward plan. And so we have set up a presentation to start that discussion. If it's all right, Chair, I'll hand over to Rachel Gravitt.
Yes, please do.
Good evening, everyone. Just as a reminder, on this first page is the judgment of the December inspection. So if you remember that we had 3 areas under the 4 areas that Ofsted inspected us under, we came out as overall inadequate. So inadequate for the impact of leaders on social work practice, the experience and progress of children who need help and protection, and with the requires improvement for their experiences and progress of children in care, which meant overall we were inadequate, hence the reason we're under the statutory direction and have the Children's Services Improvement Plan in place. Just as a reminder for you all, there were 7 areas that Ofsted have said needed to improve, and so that the recruitment and retention of a workforce that's experienced, competent and confident to deliver the services that we're required to do so. The quality of practice, in particular assessment and planning, and the use and completion of chronologies, the response to domestic violence, emotional support to children in care, and the recording of children's views. The timeliness of social work intervention and support when unborn and very young children are at risk of significant harm, and the standard of care provided to young people living in houses of multiple occupation. The impact of quality assurance and management oversight on the standard of social work practice and progressing work effectively to avoid delay for children, and the overview of children's attainment and progress by the virtual school, care leavers' access to their health records. So those were the definitive areas that Ofsted reported to us after their inspection that requires improvement. And these are the areas that I would suggest that you might want to consider going forward as themed areas to look at Overview and Scrutiny. To assist with that, we've just put together some areas that can all summarise those into different areas which you might want to consider as particular themes to work on throughout the next few months with Overview and Scrutiny. The first one, workforce stability, relates to the recruitment and retention of staff. So we're looking at a recruitment and retention strategy. It's been presented here a couple of times, and we're doing further work on that to enable us to stabilise our workforce and move forward with the improvements that we need. We're embedding a new quality assurance framework in order to totally understand the quality of the practice that we have within the service and ensure that it's embedded and consistent for our children and young people. The Ofsted inspectors picked up that we were assessing too late for newborns and unborns, and we've introduced a new policy as a result of that. You'll be aware that for care experienced young people, they were concerned about the condition of some of the HMOs that those young people were living in, and also the access to their health records, but also a couple of other bits around care experienced young people. So I'm suggesting that there might be a theme around care experienced young people. And then the overview of children's attainment and progress by the virtual school. This was in particular to do with PEPs and going forward. So just as a bit of a summary for to sort of hone your thoughts with regards to the areas of improvement, these are suggestions that you might like to consider going forward. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Just before we sort of start the questions and thinking about our planning, I just want to sort of go back and remind ourselves of when the dates of the next meetings are. because we need to sort of marry up the dates of the meetings with when we want to do the scrutiny. So the next meeting is 7th of June, followed by the 26th of July, then the 20th of September, and then the 22nd of November. So they are the meeting dates. So if we're going to look at what order we do things in and what areas we want to look at, they need to marry in with the best dates for the meetings with the work that's being done. So I'm open to some questions to start with. Then anybody got any questions? Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just talking about the recruitment issues. I know that was a significant challenge for us. Has that improved since the last time we met?
There's still a lot of work to do in that area, and so that's why it's suggested that Scrutiny put it on their forward plan. And picking up Chair's point about a June and July, September and November scrutiny, I would advise that that's either in a June or July scrutiny forward plan.
Sorry, Chair, for you, is that okay? With the HMOs, is that purely, that's raised as concern purely because the condition, it's like because of the external influences young people could be exposed to as well, as it purely just the condition of the buildings?
Absolutely right, both.
Sandra.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with the suggested topics to look at. The only one that I think might be missing, and I'm only saying I think might be missing, is the voice of the child. Ofsted did sort of say right the way through the report that you know, obviously consultation with children and young people, and we were going to recruit another participation worker, and I just thought that maybe we ought to be looking to see if that was coming through, because they made a big emphasis on this. I don't know, it may have been included in one of your topics, but I just wanted to sort of emphasise it, if that's all right.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah, please do.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right, and I would say that that is something that should be encompassed all the way through all those areas. And with regard to the participation worker, that was specifically with regard to the written statement of action for education. But I would absolutely say that it's an area that we should report on through all of that, because there are a variety of ways that we seek the voice of the child, but we need to make sure it becomes part and parcel and within the bloodstream of the work that we do. So thank you for that.
So can I just be clear then? So what we're saying is the best thing to do is not to use that as a theme, but use it with like a strand within each of the themes. Yeah. Yeah, please do, Michael.
Thank you. Many moons ago, I was the Cabinet Member for Education and Children's Services, and we had very great difficulties in getting staff, so much so that we had to draw the USA eventually to get people. And I wonder, are these, you know, we're talking about getting these staff, but are they out there, are they available? Or is it the same situation as it was going back, goes on 20 years ago?
I have a feeling that Cathy's got a story to tell on that one.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid that I would suggest that we're probably in a similar, if not worse, position. This isn't just a local issue, it's a national issue. We have challenges around the fact of if you were wanting to be an employer of choice, we sit between good and outstanding other local authorities. We are moving from inadequate, so that presents us with an outward challenge, although I would say that working for a council, children's services moving from inadequate is probably a really a place where innovation and creativity begins to happen. We are looking at different ways of recruiting. We're looking at growing our own. How do we do that? How do we become an employer of choice? Sometimes it isn't always about money and various other things. What are the other things that we would like to see people with in terms of employment? You know, is that about 9-day fortnights or different ways of working? To answer your question about the USA, we haven't tried the USA recently, but we have recruited, I think it's now 7-8 social workers from Rwanda. And so we are looking at that international social work field, but I would say that's along with all the other local authorities nationally as well.
Could I just add to the question there, because I know we've had a conversation about this, but just so that everybody, could you explain why Rwanda?
So I'd have to pass over to Rachel because this scheme was beginning to be put in place before I arrived. So, excuse me, Chair.
So we've engaged a provider who's a specialist in international recruitment of social workers, and we interviewed 35 candidates that they put forward, and we recruited the 8 from that list, and they just happened to be from Rwanda, South Africa, countries that were the best candidates at the time.
So it's just purely quality of candidates from there is good. Cathy.
Thank you, Chair. I just would, I'd just also like to say, when you're looking at international social work, you have to find those people who have a similar social work qualification as you would find in this country. So it would limit some of the countries that we would be able to look at.
Right, thank you. Mark.
Just to note that the Winchester Diocese Education Board is linked with Rwandan Education Board. So if there are opportunities for the diocese to help in that respect, I can't see. Maybe it's just more with the social links. If anyone coming to work over here and want links back with home, then the Diocese of Winchester might be able to help.
Thank you. That is actually very interesting and helpful. Jane.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, I just was looking through the, I think it was the first document, and it was giving our target case rates for different sections. And I just wondered whether those case rates are sort of consistent with national levels of, they're able to be managed, manageability.
Thank you, Chair. If you, I guess the national would be a lot lower, but it's also about what we can afford at this moment in time, the staff that we've got. So they are set at what we would consider reasonable and manageable. However, if you think about Ofsted and the work that you would do with children, young people and their families, the lower the caseloads, the better the work will be. So it's where we've started rather than where we'd like to finish.
Yes, thank you very much. So is that what we have at the moment, or where we're aiming at? Or
so that's where we're moving to at this moment in time within the resources that we have. So yes, and so I think it's something that you as Scrutiny should scrutinise in terms as on a continuing basis.
So there was one particular area where our case rate was quite low, and Ofsted thought we were doing well at that.
Yeah.
So it often makes a massive difference.
It does.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sean, your hand is up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, for you. I think we did mention this last time. Apprenticeships, I believe there are some in place at the moment. Is that number improved? Or is anything, again, I don't think we can do the help with that. So I imagine that's quite an attractive proposition for someone leaving education.
I'd have to look into that, because obviously we were working on what we could suggest to you as Scrutiny to scrutinise. So if that's an area you want to scrutinise, we can find the detail. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sandra, I think you were just being late, so.
Thank you, Chair. Two other queries I've got. Special guardianship orders. The policy of financial offer is going to be reviewed. I could do with a bit more information about that one. And also early help. They said that the offer needs to be strengthened, and we've now got an early help partnership board. Presumably it's met. So there must be a bit more feedback from that. I just queried that.
Yeah, so they might be areas that you would like to scrutinise, and we can bring that information back. Yes.
May.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's just looking at the suggested themes for us to look at, and I agree that they are probably good ones. But what I'm thinking, perhaps this might be for the later discussion, is some kind of time frame, because they are all the 6 things that are listed there. They are actually quite different in nature as to what what it is we are actually aiming to get to, or the place that we're aiming to get to, and they are quite different. And also, what does good look like? What is the measure of success? Because some of them are not, using the analogy of, it's not an exact science. So it's not like 2 + 2 = 4, because there is a lot more to this than just a precise measure. So it's just something, as an overview and scrutiny, that we should give a bit of thought into what we think, or perhaps what the officers think success would look like, what good look like, and a time frame. Because particularly I'm looking at the workforce stability, whilst with the best will in the world, we're going out there doing everything we can. If there are no people out there for us to recruit, it's not because we haven't tried, we have, but there's just not the people there. I'm just using it as an example, I'm not saying that it will happen.
I mean, I totally agree, and my feelings are exactly the same here. I think I'm probably right that workforce stability will follow if we get everything else right. I'm getting nodding, so that's my. So if we become good and outstanding, I think the workforce will follow. So to a certain extent, it should look after itself. But you're quite right. What good looks like in versions of good, I think, is also, because there's more than one version of good, isn't there? So it'll be really useful in our scrutiny coming up to have some indication about how we recognise good, because I know we're not experts in the field, but it'd be nice to know what it looked like. Now I'm getting a sort of general theme here about some sort of order. Let me just share you where I'm thinking at the moment and see if anybody disagrees. We're saying that recruitment and retention we need to look at reasonably soon, maybe towards July. My thing I've got here that I've got down to look for first is quality assurance. And we haven't really mentioned that yet. I'm going. Are we in agreement that might be? Yeah. So sort of get quality assurance in first, and then follow it with the recruitment and retention. We've talked about HMOs and that, but my feeling is that is also that's being tackled quite well at the moment. I don't know. Yeah. So it's one of the things that maybe we've got to keep an eye on, but hopefully somebody else is doing that work. So we need to. So we're looking at these other themes which I've jotted down here. So we've talked about stability, quality assurance. We've said we've got it in the right place. We've got children's attainment as a theme, haven't we? What's a good time frame do people feel for that? Whereabouts? Kathy, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think we might need to be advised as and when the results come out, because obviously, and where might be prudent, because obviously we've had 2 years where there haven't been exams, and you also would like assurance around PEPs. Obviously, children haven't been in school, some haven't been in school, so it's making sure that you pitch that time at a time where you're going to get the data that's really going to give you a sense and feel of where we're at. We can come back to you on that, because I don't think they come out till October. Yeah. So I would say definitely further down the line. And we would have had a year almost of children back in school by then.
Yeah, so the general idea is that when we get the data, we can do some work on the data and then bring it up at that point. Jane, your hand is up.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask about number 5 in the list of suggested themes, because it seems to be missing. Oh, good. We haven't lost one then. No.
So just because unfortunately I hadn't written the numbers down, I've just written the words down. So I'm doubly confused now. So we have a number without any words. Is that what we're saying? Yeah. Which is the wrong number. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we jumped from 4 to 6, but what I've tried to do is group a couple together so that we can get through them quicker. because the quality assurance will cover the practice as well from the previous list.
Right, thank you. I think I've got it here now as well, yes, I understand. Anybody else got any questions at the moment? So my feeling is that we have sort of a plan then, don't we? So we're looking at, we've got the order that things, at least the first ones to come to us, and we know what we're asking for that. Well, I'm just checking with the officer. You're happy with what you've been asked for, and the time frame is suitable. So yes, Sandra.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the June monitoring visit. I mean, I know it's not published, but presumably there is a report. So, you know, whether or not that will sort of show which direction we should be looking at as a matter of urgency, or, you know, or how progress is going, basically.
Yeah, please do, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. I would expect that we would give you a briefing on that, on the outcome. As I said, it will be a letter, it won't be a report. But I would think if they come late June, it may not come till the mid of July. It depends when the embargo is and whether you've then got the summer holidays. So we can slot that in as soon as we know the date that we've got the feedback. We've got the formal report, but it could be end of July, but it might not be till September if there's no scrutiny in August. Yeah.
So that just to be clear, so that will be a briefing. Would that be a briefing during the scrutiny meeting, or an out meeting briefing?
We would do a briefing that we would cover for everybody, so it doesn't necessarily need to be, but there might be some issues you want to scrutinise from that.
Anybody else got any points or questions? So it's going to be less than 2 hours tonight then. Yeah, it's Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. May I also suggest that you might want to revisit some of the areas like quality assurance, because when we get to July, we can begin to tell you the things that we're doing to assure ourselves about the quality, you know, in terms of what we're doing, but equally we've got Hampshire County Council in as a partner in practice who again will benchmark how we're moving. And so by the time we get to July, that work, Hampshire will have only just almost be finishing their diagnostic. So the impact of their work may not be until further on in the year. And so you just might want to plan another quality assurance overview and scrutiny later in the year. Can I just also remind everybody we are inadequate, and there is a rating between inadequate and good, which requires improvement. And so therefore I just need people to understand the journey that we're on and the expectations that we have. What I would want to see and want to hopefully be scrutinised by yourselves is where the green shoots of growth are and development, and whether they're in the right places. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that reminder. I am very aware of it, but although I always like to look on the positive and always mention that they're good and outstanding, because I know that's where we're going to be. We may even leapfrog with quite improvement. I don't know if that's allowable, but
we would be the first ever nationally to do that. So just measuring the expectations here.
Well, BCP are have been the first in several things, so let's hope that is also one of them. But yes. So just to summarise what we've talked about, because so we've talked about the order of the themes. We've talked about the themes. We've got a list of the themes, the order. We've talked about adding a strand of the voice of the child. We've talked about recruitment and international recruitment and the success, the reasons for success are there. We've talked about apprenticeships. We've talked about special guardianships and orders and early help. We've got a general idea of what we're going to look at first and how it's going to be looked at. I'm quite keen to keep it quite dynamic later on. We don't need to fix it now, everything, but it's just good to fix the first things in. I think I've covered everything there. that we've talked about. In that case, we're going on to item 7, the forward plan. Just I've got a note here. I've got a possibility of a permanence planning training for the meeting on the July, because that's on the forward plan. It's not fixed, I haven't agreed it yet, but I thought I'd just let you know so that it may be starting a bit earlier on that day for that training. Yeah, I feel your excitement too, Betty. Any other comments on the forward plan? In that case, it's just note the next meeting date, which is the. Oh.
Sorry, I just wondered whether or not it could be sent out to members so that we could add our own. I mean, I've got it, so I know what I'm going to say. But I just wondered if other members would like to make a contribution towards it. Yeah, I'd like to see it, and also the contribution of the consultation. Yeah, you've got to read it first, haven't you? Yeah, I mean, there's also a white paper on education, but the other one is the one that I want to contribute to because it's consultation.
So we can add that to the forward plan. Is an action.
Well, I was just wondering if it could just go out to members so that they can get on with it.
I think that would be a good idea, and I'm getting nodding around the room from all directions.
Yeah.
So that's good. In that case, just a note: the next date, 7th of June, is the next meeting, and thank you everybody for attending.